Hello, I'm Andrea Lane with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate, and this is 30 Minutes with a Realtor. And today I'm joined by Floyd, who is a realtor over at Nebraska Realty. So it really is 30 minutes with two realtors. It's like two for one. And today I'm super excited. I wore my Disney shirt, my little Mickey. You've got your Mickey on. And we are talking some Disney hacks. So I've been seeing a lot of posts on different Facebook boards. I've been seeing a lot of chatter, especially as people are venturing out a little more to do vacations, that we're seeing more people go, hey, we're talking about going to Disney. What do you think? So, and I know in getting to chat with you the last time at YPM and finding out that you used to work at Disney, I was like, who better to come talk about Disney stuff than somebody who worked behind the scenes and got to see some of that stuff. So Floyd, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And so I have my phone next to me. So if you guys have questions that you want to ask Floyd, and I know some of my friends had already kind of asked me some stuff ahead of time to be able to present to you to do. And I would say, first out of the gate is if you're considering going to Disney, and I know with COVID and stuff, it may make some people feel reserved about doing, but you just got back. Mm-hmm. So talk about your experience about getting to Disney now when it's kind of a little bit different.
It's a little bit different, yeah. So things are, the thing that worried me most is the travel. Disney itself is doing a great job. The travel in the airports and the airplanes made me a little bit nervous, but that was fine. When you actually get to Disney, some things are not in their kind of full capacity. You have to make a park reservation now for whichever park you would like to be in for that day, because they're keeping the parks at a limited capacity. They are requiring masks anytime you're indoors. However, if you're outside, indoors or in a queue or in an attraction,
right.
Even if the queue's outdoors, you still have to wear a mask. But when you're outside of the attractions, you're fine. The parks weren't too crowded. Some of my favorite things like pin trading are not in the same. They're not at the same level that they were before.
Okay.
So, for example, with pin trading, you'd walk through the parks in the past, and every single cast member would have a lanyard or a little thing, and they had pins you could trade with them. Yep. It's very limited now. There's like boards, pin trading boards in certain places throughout the park, and that's the only places where you can trade pins.
Well, I learned about pin trading just before we went, because like when we went to Disneyland, I didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm. It's not as big out there, yeah.
Right, and then Disney World, like it was
it's
like
everywhere.
Such a huge thing. So I wound up getting a couple lanyards that came with a couple pins to start. Mm-hmm. You don't have to trade the pins that you have, but you can.
Yeah, well, that's kind of changed a little bit.
Okay.
So with the new boards, the way that it kind of works, because they sanitize the pins after you trade it to them and before it goes on the board.
Okay.
So now you have to like drop a pin in their little box, and then they let you take one. So once you've dropped that pin, you've traded it. And some of them are mystery boxes, so you don't quite know exactly what you're getting until you have dropped your pin, picked a number, and then they pull out the thing and you get to. So
that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
A little different, like not knowing what you're getting. But I mean, again, that's the fun of because they have some of the mystery packs of pins. Mm-hmm. At the gift stores too that you can get and add the pins or whatnot. So yeah, the pin trading was really kind of, I would say, more popular the second part of the trip for us than it was the very beginning, because you're not sure what to expect. Right. You're like, oh well, this is fun. And then like my son found a pin somewhere in the park, and we tried to go to one of the customer service and return it, and she was like, no, just keep it, we'll make sure that whoever, and then had to find it back to a pin, because I had one where the back fell off of it. Mm-hmm. But the lady that was at the gift shop was so nice about it. Like, that's one of the things I know you and I have talked about, is the Disney experience really is just that. It is an experience, and it's I think sometimes hard to describe to people that's part of why it's as expensive as it is. It's not just going to an amusement park. It's everything from the time you go for parking to the time that you walk through the door to the ride. So touch on that a little bit, because you've seen behind the scenes where maybe not all of us have.
Yeah, so every single little touch point that you have throughout your day should be what they refer to as like a magical experience, or they give you the freedom to create what they call magical moments. which sounds really cliche, but it is what it is. And it's just no other company that I've ever worked for gives you the freedom. Even as just like an hourly entry level employee, we would give them the freedom to take a situation and make it right, or to take an opportunity that they see and create one of those moments. Even if you're not working, like even if you're off the clock and you're just in the park as a guest,
okay.
As long as you have your work ID, you can still take an opportunity and make one of those moments. I was there one night to watch the fireworks and at Magic Kingdom, just as a guest in the park. And a few rows ahead of me was a little girl with her family in a wheelchair. And for the fireworks show, her dad, because if you've ever been to Disney during a fireworks show, it's very crowded, it's very tight. Her dad picked her up out of her little wheelchair and put her on his shoulders to watch the fireworks. Well, when he did that, I ran over to a little souvenir stand and just kind of flashed my blue work ID, and I said, grabbed a stuffed Minnie Mouse and said, "Hey, I need this for guest recovery." And so then they just mark it down on their little sheet, and I took it over there and I put it in her little wheelchair and then went back where I was standing.
Oh.
And so then when the fireworks are done and she turns around and everything, there's that little Minnie Mouse sitting there in the chair waiting for her, and it was just kind of you get the opportunity to create those little moments, and that's what makes a Disney trip a Disney trip. You go to Worlds of Fun, they're not going to give you a free Minnie Mouse. That's just not. It's not the same experience.
Right.
But
and it's that, and knowing that you get to create, not only just create that experience, but others are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That I think makes you want to go there and be witness to that and see some of that. So let's talk about, so I hit up two of my friends who also travel to Disney a lot to kind of give a couple of tips or tricks that, that were different. So I know we kind of talked about, which it sounds like right now COVID is changing a little bit of the park transfer back and forth, because one of my friends recommended not to do the park hopper. And you even said, it's good and it's bad, but right now, because you're having to do a reservation in advance to which park you're going to, and not until 2 p.m., correct?
Yep. So you make a reservation for which park you're going to start your day at.
Okay.
And then after 2 p.m., if you have park hopper on your ticket, after 2 p.m., as long as the park you're trying to go to isn't at its reduced capacity, you are allowed to transfer. You can park hop from one park to another.
Sure.
But you can't park hop until 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
Because that gives everybody who had their reservations for that park
full time to hit what they want to hit.
Yeah, they get to do what they want to do in the morning.
I love it. So one of hers was character dining, because I feel like this comes up every time I go. Doesn't matter. Is that if you're booking your Disney trip in July, book your character dining at that time. And I know most people are like, "Oh, that's really early."
So if you're staying at a resort, if you're staying at a Disney resort, you get 90 days to book your dining reservations. So you can't book dining reservations until you're within that 90-day window from your arrival date. Be up at 6 a.m. on that very first day. When we went, we had 5 restaurants that we really, 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 really wanted to get to. I was up at 6 a.m. that day. We only got 4 of them.
Well, that's still pretty good.
Yeah, we did really well.
4 out of 5. I was
very
that's
surprised.
Really good.
I was very surprised. And the one we didn't get was one that I didn't in a million years think I would have an issue getting a reservation at. But,
oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, so those reservations go really quick.
Where's your favorite place to do character dining when it comes to Disney?
So character dining, there's a couple answers. So at Magic Kingdom, there's a restaurant called Be Our Guest. You get to eat inside Beast's castle.
Mm-hmm.
You can sit in the ballroom. You can sit in the West Wing. You can sit in the Rose Gallery. It's very, very, very pretty. It's excellent. And then you get to meet the Beast while you're eating there. Character dining has changed a little bit because of COVID.
Okay.
It wasn't happening at all for a while. They're just now starting to bring it back in a reduced way.
Okay.
Which I can kind of touch on here in a second. But my other favorite one, if you're doing a character breakfast, which is a big deal at Disney, everybody's like, you got to do a character breakfast while you're there if you have kids. Chef Mickey's at the Contemporary Resort is my favorite character breakfast, because you get, especially if you have young kids who like trains or buses or anything like that, the monorail goes right through the Contemporary Resort, the lobby.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you get to sit there and eat breakfast and watch the monorail go right by over your head, and it's really neat. You get to meet Mickey, Donald, Daisy, Goofy, Pluto.
Oh, absolutely.
They're all there.
So if it wasn't character dining, where's your top place that you like to go?
So If you would have asked me this before my last trip, I would have told you Tiffin's at Animal Kingdom, which is a fantastic restaurant. That actually opened while I was working there, and the year it opened, it won an award for the best theme park restaurant in the country.
Oh, wow.
But after this last trip, if you can swing it, it was not a cheap ticket. If you can swing it and if you can get the reservation, we ate at the California Grill, which is on the top floor of the Contemporary Resort.
Okay.
Which I've wanted to eat there for years and was never able to get a reservation.
Oh, wow.
Because I was never staying at the resorts.
Ah,
okay. And resort guests get 90 days, everybody else gets 60.
Right.
So I was never able to get a reservation there. That was potentially one of the best meals I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
So what
is kind of their menu for?
Right now, they're doing a 50th anniversary prefix menu for the next, well, what are we, 6-7 months into the 50th anniversary? So they got 11 months left.
Okay. Wow, don't break your name tag. Okay, so you said California Grill, right?
Yes. And that's at the Contemporary Resort.
If I can spell it right. And you said it's at the Contemporary Resort.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that
can you only book this if you're at that resort, or can you book it if you're at any resort?
Nope, you can book it at any resort.
Okay.
Always keep in mind if you're staying at another resort, getting there. So let's say you're staying at any resort, like we stayed at the Port Orleans French Quarter on this particular trip. If you're staying at any Disney resort and you're going to eat dinner at another Disney resort, you need to give yourself probably a good hour and a half if you're using the transportation system.
Okay.
Because buses don't run from resort to resort. So you're going to have to take a bus from your resort to a park or to Disney Springs and then transfer to the bus that goes back to the resort you're going to be eating at.
Okay.
So you need to give yourself a good amount of time to get from point A to point B.
So Steffens is the other place that you mentioned at.
Tiffin's.
Yep. Sorry.
Tiffins. Tiffin's.
Tiffins. Mm-hmm. And that one's where at?
That's at Animal Kingdom.
Which is, we both said, our favorite park. Now, why is Animal Kingdom your favorite?
Animal Kingdom is my home. Animal Kingdom is where I worked when I was down there. And then you just add on to the fact that it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. I personally think it's probably the most well executed of the 4 parks. Agreed. As far as the design and the thought process that went into building it.
The wow of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think my advice would be on Animal Kingdom is plan to be there. I thought even from the morning, even to the evening, because the evening, especially in the Avatar area, everything's black lit, so everything glows. And for kids, it was magical. And so you were just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
The safari, if you get the opportunity to do it twice, do it during the day and then do it again after dark. They do a simulated sunset. The animals just behave differently after dark than they do during the day. So you'll see different animals. It's a different experience at night than it is during the day.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember we ate in Animal Kingdom. I don't remember if it was at Tiffin's, but I know we had a really big board and it had a couple different meats on it. And I think it was back in Avatar, but I'll have to look it up because I can't remember. But it was amazing. So, and there's been a lot of changes for some of the Star Wars stuff too. So, because we were just talking before we were on camera about this, which I think is interesting that for Rise of the Resistance, was a virtual queue, but now it's been there long enough that they're no longer doing the virtual queue, but they're doing
it's just regular standby
and
Lightning Lane Plus.
So what's the difference between Lightning Lane and Lightning Lane Plus?
So you have Genie Plus, which is their new system that replaced Fast Pass. It's $15 a day per person, I believe.
Okay.
And that one is similar to Fast Pass in that you book a pass in the morning, you can book another one 2 hours after that, or once you've used the one prior, and then you can continue booking one more throughout the day. But there are limited attractions that you can book on Genie Plus.
Okay.
For the premium attractions like Rise of the Resistance, Millennium Falcon at Hollywood Studios, if you go to Magic Kingdom, it's, I think, Space Mountain, Big Thunder, and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. At Animal Kingdom, it's Everest and Flight of Passage in Pandora. And then at Epcot, there's several, and I can't remember exactly which ones they are. There's Lightning Lane, an individual Lightning Lane, which is an additional thing you purchase, which is anywhere from $7 to $15 per experience per person.
Okay.
And you're basically buying just a Lightning Lane to that one attraction.
Okay.
And so those premium attractions they're not included in that Genie Plus.
Okay.
It's an interesting system.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Because, I mean,
it's very much in its infancy, and I feel like they're still trying to kind of figure out exactly
see what they want to do.
Yep.
There's a really interesting documentary on Netflix about the whole Fast Pass and like how Disney came about it with the.
They revolutionized that whole the Disney was the first one to come up with the idea of even having a separate queue that moves faster than, and it's really fascinating.
Oh, it was. Like, my son was the one who found it. And he was like, oh, Mom, you got to watch this. Like, just how they engineered, making a ride be more productive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or drawing people away from some rides to bring them over to other rides.
Well, and the other, I don't want to get into, the dark side of theme parks, but, I mean, they're a business. They're there to make money. So, when you have somebody standing in a queue for a line for 3.5 hours, they're not buying food. They're not buying merchandise. They're not, they're not doing any of that. So, part of the thought process was, hey, if instead of having them wait in line for 4 hours, we tell them to come back in 4 hours and get in a shorter line, they'll go eat some food and buy some souvenirs and do some other stuff while they're waiting to get back on the ride. So that was kind of the main motivator behind doing that. They'd tell you it was to improve the guest experience, which it did. Yeah, it did improve the guest experience. I don't think that was their primary motivator.
Sure. Well, so mine was, I said, because when we did the Avatar, I can't think of the name of the ride, where you ride on the
Flight of Passage.
Mm-hmm. So my son and I waited in line so that we could child swap for our daughter that was, not old enough to get on that ride. And our big thing wasn't so much the wait. Was part of it's the wait, but there you couldn't grab a drink in between. And then there's no restrooms. So we were there for 3 hours, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, at that point.
Flight of Passage does have a set of restrooms in the queue. That was actually one of the first attractions Disney ever built with a set of restrooms. There's a set of restrooms and a pair of drinking fountains about halfway through the queue.
Oh, see, I thought it was at the end just before we got on.
It's like right before you go. So Flight of Passage is one of the few attractions that I actually advocate for not doing a Fast Pass or Lightning Lane. Or if you do, also do it in the standby one time, because the queue for that attraction is incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't want to say too much about it, but the theming in that particular queue, and when you do the Lightning Lane, you just walk right past all of it. You don't see any of it, and it's really, really, really cool. But
for the layman out there who maybe haven't been to one of these parks, what he's saying is you're waiting in the line is part of the experience, and that was what I've learned both from a couple different parks when you get the faster passes, that you don't always get to see some of the mind thought that goes into creating the experience from the time you get into the line, which is some of the experience, right?
And it's changed a lot. If you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, you go to a theme park and it's, you're just standing in a line that goes like this and there's nothing going on and you're just there there might be a TV up on the wall or something. But when I worked at Disney, I was there in 2016, 2017. That was when they really started. Somebody came up with the idea of they call it an interactive queue. And I think Seven Dwarfs Mine Train was the first attraction to be built with what they referred to as the interactive queue.
Okay.
Space Mountain, I think, was the first one to be retrofitted with it.
Okay.
And in the queue line, there's actually things to do. So when Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and right now we didn't do the standby queue for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train this trip. I don't believe any of this stuff is going on right now because of COVID, because it increases touch points and all that. But in the queue for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, there are they look like a what do they call it when you're getting gold with the tray? Like a sifting
for the
trough.
gold. Yeah. Where you can mine
but it's a touch screen, and there's little jewels floating down. The kids can virtually sift for jewels in the water as it runs down the trough, and like there's barrels that you can spin and they project different light patterns on the ceiling and stuff. So it's interactive and it's fun.
Right.
Space Mountain, if you've ever rode Space Mountain before, the queue is essentially just a long, narrow hallway with nothing going on. They put screens up along that hallway, and there are buttons on the rail, and you can play games on the screen, and you're playing against the other 3 or 4 people who are
in line with you.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So there's things going on in the queues.
Okay.
That didn't. Yeah, so they try very hard to make the queues a little more bearable.
Right, so that you're not just waiting, that it's not just hard to go through, which is why, like, one of the tips from both of my friends who travel a lot for Disney was having really good walking shoes and taking like 2 pairs.
Oh, absolutely. Dr.
Like
Scholl's.
You said,
Dr. Scholl's is your friend. Yep, you got to be gelling when you go to Disney. Yeah.
Yes, because your feet will take it, and then also besides plan on waiting, like we made our kids practice a little bit ahead of time, like standing and waiting so that they would be ready when they got there. And some of it, because you don't want them hanging on rails. Or, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's COVID or not. Like, I didn't want my kids licking stuff or doing that. And it's funny because you just said this from your last trip, is that my friend Corey said, budget a little more for food and souvenirs than you think you might need.
Yeah. And it's gotten more expensive than it used to be.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into like full numbers, but
sure.
I spent a lot more money on this trip than I anticipated.
So that's a good piece of advice. Yeah. Expect, would you say maybe not quite double what you were budgeting? Oh, you're saying yes. You're saying yes, budget, or think double.
Double or more than what you're budgeting.
Well, and so to me, one of the things that I discovered from being able to go to Disneyland was we could take snacks with us into Disney World. And so and that's what enabled me to splurge on like a character dining was. I was like, hey guys, we stayed at a hotel where we could have breakfast in the morning and then go to the park. And so I would take like chips and drinks with us. So, and they stayed in the stroller with us. So as we were going through the park, drink wise or water wise, where it was primarily what we had with us, and then do a really big dinner earlier in the evening so that we could still get on some of the rides later. And I think there's not a lot of people know that you can do that. And so if you are going budget conscious to Disney.
We can talk Disney on a budget for a second.
Well, right. Is that, Disney on a budget for some is a reality. And I was like, when I flew in to Orlando, stopped at a Costco. And so we got sodas, chips, and stuff like that, in the Costco stuff. And then every morning packed the bag.
What a lot of people don't know. So, fun fact. So, I am a huge advocate for staying on Disney property.
Yes.
Because it's just, if you're there primarily to do Disney, it's part of the experience. It increases things like you wouldn't believe. You have transportation, so you don't need to rent a car, which can save you a good amount of money there. They used to do what's called Disney's Magical Express. They did end that service in a way. A company called Mears is the one that always managed that for them.
Okay.
Disney just put their name on the side of the bus, but Mears was the one who always ran it.
Okay.
Disney basically just ended that partnership. So Mears still does it. You have the Mears Connect, which runs from the airport to a Disney resort.
Okay.
It does cost. It's not free anymore. So depending on what resort you're going to, what season you're there, I think for us it was like $16 a person each way. And then if anybody has used Disney's Magical Express in the past, they send you a tag for your luggage. You put it on your luggage at home. When you check your luggage at the airport, it just shows up in your room at Disney. You don't have to pick it up at the Orlando airport.
Okay.
They ended that. So when Mears took over and the Magical Express ended, you do have to stop and pick up your bag now. Okay. So I don't want anybody to book the Mears Connect and then show up at their resort and then their luggage is still at the airport. You do have to stop and pick up your luggage now, which is a change.
Okay. So that kind of brings in, like you said, time of year. What is your recommended time of year? So my one girlfriend said if you can do late fall to early winter, that was her recommended. And I always say like mid-December-ish because like I often go during Christmas or just post-Christmas, New Year's, most expensive time to go. So where would you say?
From somebody who worked there.
Right.
And worked there every day for almost 2 years. there isn't, crowd level wise, there is not a good time to visit Disney. It's busy all the time, always.
Okay.
Avoid the big dates. So like October 1st is the anniversary of the Magic Kingdom. So on any of the 5 years, it's like 45 was 5 years ago. This last year was 50. Avoid that day like the plague. Things like that are a big. Those are the days that parks hit capacity.
Okay, so no to, you said October 1st.
Yep.
Okay.
Holiday time. So when they're doing the Halloween party, when they're doing the Christmas party, I advocate for visiting during those times because those experiences are awesome and unique and you don't get them any other time. They are going to be busier. Crowd levels will be higher. And they're more expensive. So the Halloween party, the Christmas party, those are additional ticketed events. So it's another ticket that you have to purchase.
Right. We saw some of that.
Yep. And the other thing would be holidays like 4th of July, Memorial Day, any big fireworks holiday. Disney does additional fireworks. So those are busier days. The park is heavier. The park is more full.
Okay.
Yeah. And then spring break and Christmas break. Heavier crowd times.
You said spring break.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Outside of things like that, the crowd levels are going to be very similar.
Okay.
No matter when you're there. Unless you happen to get like a lucky day where just people didn't decide to go to Disney that day.
We did find that like if you go during like the holiday stuff, don't go on New Year's Eve, even though they do fireworks and stuff.
Yep.
Go New Year's Day because everybody's hungover and they're not at the park. So like we learned that when we did Disney, we went on New Year's Day and, got up early and got to the parks and stuff. And it was like a ghost town and not very many people were there. So I was like, okay, memo, make sure to remember, like go on New Year's Day is good.
Another really cool time, if you're able to visit right over Halloween. So that transition right there, because the night of Halloween, so Halloween happens that night, they remove all the Halloween decorations from the park. You can come in the next day, there will be no decorations up anywhere.
Oh, wow.
And then that night, they'll go through and they'll put up all of the Christmas decorations. So you go in the next day and all the Christmas decorations will be up, with the exception of there's 9. Oh, there might be 10 now because there's another big resort that wasn't there when I was there. 9 big, they call it an icon tree. There's 5 of them, 1 at each park and at Disney Springs. And then 3 of the big deluxe resorts also had an icon tree, which are just giant, like 35-foot Christmas trees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, those take a little bit longer to put up.
Right? But still, that's really impressive. Those parks aren't small. No. So in one whole night, drop all the one decorations and put all the others up, that is a feat.
So
it's Disney, right?
If you have Disney Plus, there's an entire documentary. And I actually got to tour this facility when I was there, which is really cool. But there's a documentary on Disney Plus about holidays at the parks. There is an entire warehouse behind the Magic Kingdom that is dedicated just to holidays at the parks. The trees are set up in there year-round. Literally the day after they take down the trees, they put them up in that warehouse and they start decorating them for the next year. Like there's a scale model of the castle in there so they can plan decorations.
Oh, wow. Wow, they really do it.
There's people who their job all year long is holidays at the park. So
now, give me your top 3, because I know you're a big park, staying at the resorts. Mm-hmm. And I know, most of my friends do. I haven't stayed at any of the Disney resorts. I did a vacation rental, which I absolutely loved. But I think my next time going to a Disney that I want to do a resort. So I guess it's going to be a 2-part question. Number 1 is, have you gone to all like worldwide Disneys, or which of the Disney parks have you gone to so far?
Bucket list every Disney park is the goal. That's the goal.
Sure.
I've been to Disneyland. I've been to Disney World, just the domestic ones.
Okay.
I have a trip planned for next year for 2023. We're going to go visit Aulani in Hawaii, which is the Disney resort in Hawaii. I would like to I'm going on a cruise this July. I would like that to be a Disney cruise. Okay. I don't know if that's in the budget after this Disney trip. But,
sure. Because I've had 2 friends do Disney cruises.
Yep, I did a Disney cruise while I was working there.
Okay.
It was a little bit different experience because I literally knew I was going on this cruise a week before it happened.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, bottom level room.
Right.
Yeah, so it wasn't like...
Right, it wasn't where you kind of planned it out enough to have a balcony or be in a specific space. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. As a cast member, you get discounts, obviously, on hotels and things like that.
Sure.
For cruises specifically, when they get down to the last couple weeks before a cruise sets sail, if there are rooms left, they go on the cast member website for super, super, super deep discounts. And I got a room like a week or two before it left. And so it was a really impulsive thing. But
so now you said also, though, that you want to try and get to every one of the resorts down at Disney World.
Yes, I would like to say there's 30, I believe now 37.
Wow.
Disney resorts on property. It's like 30, fun little Disney trivia. It's like 38,000 hotel rooms.
Wow.
The city of Orlando is second only to the city of Las Vegas in number of hotel rooms.
So what would you say are your top 3 in any random order places to stay?
So my absolute favorite resort is the Contemporary Resort. The Contemporary and the Polynesian, I think both have a very special place in my heart. They were the two original resorts.
So you say Contemporary is your favorite?
Yep.
Contemporary.
The Polynesian. I'm gonna say the Contemporary. I'm going to do like a deluxe, a moderate, and a value resort. So the Contemporary is probably my favorite resort overall. It is a deluxe resort, so it's a little more expensive.
So put extra dollar signs by
it. You do like 3, 2, and 1.
Okay, those are 3.
Yep. Okay. My favorite moderate resort is probably, I would say, it used to be the Port Orleans French Quarter, but I think my favorite moderate resort now would have to be the Coronado Springs.
Okay.
With the new Grand Destino Tower is just absolutely stunning. It is a beautiful, beautiful resort. And then for value resorts, Art of Animation is incredible.
Yeah. Why was that one your favorite?
The theming in Art of Animation is just super fun. So my thing, I always tell people, if you're visiting with small children, stay at a value resort. Because if you're visiting with small children and you can't really stretch for the deluxe resort, always stay in a deluxe resort if you can, because the experience is just unlike anything else you'll have anywhere in the world. But if you can't quite swing for a deluxe resort, stay at one of the stay at the Art of Animation or one of the other value resorts, because the rooms are themed. Those are the ones where you go in and you're going to have, Simba and Nala on your headboard, and you're going to have a treehouse bunk bed, and you're going to have things like that. Like, the rooms are just themed really well. The pools are full of characters and fun things, and there's giant statues of the characters outside, and it's just, the value resorts are a lot more fun.
Okay.
So if you're there with small kids, it's great.
Because you can do more at the resort, is what you're saying.
It's just more themed.
Sure.
It's more of a fun environment.
Okay.
They're not going to have quite as many amenities. They'll have like a restaurant, they'll have the pool. They'll usually have like a food court and then the pool. Then you'll have the main building. Then you get into your moderate resorts. My issue with legacy moderate resorts, like we stayed at the Port Orleans French Quarter, which is one of the it's on the older side of the moderate resorts. They're beautiful. The amenities are great. We had the dining hall. There's another restaurant. There were 2 bars. The pool was amazing. Like, you have the shopping. You have the boats. There's more transportation at the moderate resorts generally.
Right.
So that was fantastic. The rooms at the moderate resorts in the past have always just kind of been, there's not a lot to it. They're clean, they're well maintained, they're great. It's just a hotel room. Like, there might be a couple Mickeys on the blanket, but it's nothing crazy. Now, like the Riviera, which is a moderate resort, the Grand Destino Tower at Coronado Springs, that's changing. Those rooms are incredible. Okay. They're gorgeous. So the newer ones,
they're kind of changing it up a bit. And
Then, you get into the deluxe resorts, and they're a deluxe resort. So you have, several restaurants. You have bars. You have shopping. There's activities. There's the pool. There's, like, if you stay at the Polynesian, for example, not only do you have the pool, you have the beach along the lake where you can see the fireworks.
Right.
There's, luau, hula classes. They do limbo and games at night. Like, there's Trader Sam's, which is a tiki bar.
Doesn't the Polynesian also have, if I remember correctly, some like individual villas you can rent?
They have, so like a lot of the resorts do now.
Okay.
The Polynesian was, I believe, one of the first ones to do it. The first ones like that would be the tree houses, which I think are tied to Saratoga Springs, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But there are tree houses along the river. Those were the first ones to really be like individual houses. But the Polynesian has overwater bungalows.
Right.
Which are really
cool. And you
can
do, so when I was looking at it, I was like, not only is it like overwater bungalows, you can do it go together with like some friends.
You can.
Because they sleep enough people that you could.
They're a little pricey. So you have the bungalows at the Polynesian. I believe they're building some at the Grand Floridian, so there will be bungalows there as well. For Wilderness Lodge, I think has some bungalows. They're at several resorts now.
I think Wilderness has cabins, don't they?
That's Fort Wilderness has the cabins and the campground, which is adjacent to Wilderness Lodge. But
I just think there's a lot of options that when you first go to look at your Disney vacation, you may not consider. And depending on the time of year that you're going, I mean, because most times of the year, it's pretty decent weather where you can, having a cabin isn't necessarily.
It does get cold in the winter. I tell people that. People don't believe me. Take a coat, pack a coat.
Just in case, yeah.
Yeah, it gets cold in the winter in Florida. And it's different. It was like, I think the coldest day we were there, it was like 25 degrees, which, I mean, when it's negative, when the temperature is negative up here, you're like 25 degrees, great, that's tropical. But it's humid. It's 25 degrees feels very cold in Florida. So it does get cold down there in the winter.
Yeah, this year they've had quite a different temperature for that. So and I know we're running a little over, which is fun because I know there's so many fun things to talk about with this topic.
Yeah, we might have to do another one.
I know, right? Because there's just so much stuff. And I mean, when you think about it, on average, what would you say people spend for a Disney trip? I know what I spent was probably upwards of 10.
Yeah, Disney trips are wildly different because let's say you just have a family of 4. You can probably swing a Disney trip for $3,500 to $4,000 if you plan it right. With a family of 4, you can spend up to $45,000 on a Disney trip for a family of 4. So it's wildly different. Mm-hmm. One thing I do very much advocate for is using a Disney travel agent.
Okay.
A lot of people don't think travel agents even exist anymore, but they do.
Who do you recommend here in town?
So I don't actually have anybody here in town.
Okay,
My
so
friend
maybe
lives
before the next time we do. Another 30 minutes with a realtor talking about Disney stuff. We'll have to find somebody. That does local.
I do know that travel agents with Disney, travel agencies, Disney gives out what they call earmarked status.
Okay.
So if you are looking for a travel agent, earmarked travel agents are certified by Disney.
Okay.
And then they do like bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond. So if you find a diamond earmarked travel agency, then you're golden. Disney's given them the
thumbs up,
the stamp, and the go ahead. Yeah.
What do you feel that a travel agent brings?
So you'll pay exactly the same amount that you would pay for your Disney trip. They don't charge any extra. Disney pays them a commission out of the package price of your trip. So you won't pay any more than if you book directly through Disney. But they have the knowledge. They know, especially if you've never been to Disney before, they know what resorts are going to accommodate what you want. If you go into a Disney travel agent, because the other benefit to it is if you just start slinging your way through the website and trying to find things, it can get really overwhelming really quick.
Oh, yeah.
If you go up to a Disney travel agent and you say, I have a family of 4, we want to do 5 days, here's my budget, then they can help you figure out exactly what you can afford, what you can't afford, what, where can you go, what pieces of the vacation can fit together to get you within that budget and get you the best trip you can get within that budget.
And I think that's smart, especially if you're trying to go budget friendly your first time, for some of that stuff. No, absolutely. And then you keep your wristbands from the times that
I do. So they have magic bands. So every time I go, I keep my magic band. I think I've lost like 2 of them, but this is most of my magic bands. When I worked there, this was my little Stitch magic band was one when I worked there. Our last trip was supposed to happen in October for the 50th anniversary. So I have a Halloween magic band from our last trip. It was a limited edition one. It didn't happen in October. It got pushed back to January. So we had Halloween magic bands in January, but that's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now with the magic bands to get into the rides, that was I know we did lanyards. The magic bands themselves take over that, but you can reload it.
No, so the magic band is your park ticket.
Right.
It's your room key. It's everything. So the magic band it's just a wristband that you wear. You tap it on the door to open your hotel room. You use it. You tap it at the touch point to get into the park. You tap it at every ride to do your lightning lane. The other thing you can do is you can use the magic band to charge things to your room.
Okay.
So essentially, if you use the magic band to pay somewhere within the parks, you're just charging whatever you're getting to your room. If you have several people, like I traveled with a couple friends this time, so I had the room on my card, but they wanted to use their magic bands to pay for things. you can go to the front desk of your resort and they can set up your Magic Band to charge to a card rather than charging to the room. So if you don't want just everything charging to the one person's card, then you can split that up at your resort.
Right, that's absolutely wonderful.
But you have to be staying at a Disney resort to use the Magic Bands.
Well, and there's a lot of business, like lots of bonuses to staying at the Disney resorts, like getting into the parks early
or late. They have early. They used to call them extra magic hours.
Yes.
They changed the name. I don't know exactly. I think they're just extended hours now. But you would get into the park early or late if you were staying at the resorts.
Well, and they have some really neat things that are late night that, I kind of learned about when we were going down over the Christmas break. Like there was one for like the Aladdin train where you would get on the train, they would stop at a place. It was almost like a progressive, there was like appetizers at the one and then you went to the next and it was like a dinner.
Meal parties.
And I was like, ooh, like I didn't really kind of budget time-wise for that. But I think that's the great thing about, going the first time and having a chance to go back. That you get to do some more experiences rather than, always going 100% for just park stuff. And that was, I know one of the things that my girlfriend mentioned was, midday, like taking kind of a break, going to see the show so that kids can nap or you said going back to your hotel when on property, taking the nap and then going back later that night and powering through.
One thing I do want to touch on really quick from staying on property, because we mentioned it earlier, is groceries. What a lot of people don't know, we skimmed over this earlier and I forgot, but a lot of people don't know is you can actually have groceries delivered to your resort. So Amazon, if you do Amazon groceries, you can have them delivered directly to the Bell Services desk at your resort. You can then walk down and pick them up at the Bell Services desk, or for $6, the Bell Services people will just bring them right to your room. So that's another benefit to staying at Disney, is you can just have groceries delivered right to your room.
So I guess the last thing we touch on before we say goodbye, you talked about this a little, where you said that the ADA,
the Disability Access Services, so DAS. Yep. So I was on this last trip. I was traveling with somebody who has a very severe sun sensitivity. So if you have anybody in your party who has a disability that prevents them from being able to wait in a standard queue. Now, a wheelchair is a little bit different. If you have a wheelchair or like a mobility disability, you don't need DAS.
Okay.
The person in the wheelchair just goes up to the ride. They'll give them a return time. You don't have to go through everything to sign up for DAS. This is more for like non-apparent or non-visible disabilities.
Okay.
So if you have somebody in your party who needs that, who is not going to be able to wait in the queues, before your trip, I think it's 30 days prior to your trip is when you can start the process of setting this up. Just go on the website and look up Disability Access Services, and you'll need to get into a virtual or online queue for a video call with a cast member.
Okay.
My big piece of advice is you need to get in that queue first thing in the morning when it opens. We spent, I think, 3 separate days, probably 15 hours waiting in the queue and we would just get kicked out at the end of every day because we never got in with a person before they just stopped taking calls. The day we woke up early in the morning and got right in that queue right away, we were in it in 30 minutes and done and in and out. It was great. So just get in that queue right away in the morning.
Okay.
It's probably a 20-minute video call with somebody. They just kind of chat over like, what is the disability? Why do we need this? Awesome. And then they didn't ask us for any verification or anything. They just wanted to know what the situation was.
Okay.
Which we explained to them that, the member of our party has a very severe sun sensitivity. She can't just stand in a queue in the Florida sun for 2 hours.
We don't want to cook her.
Yeah. And so they take a picture of the person who has the disability, because every time you go to a ride, that person has to scan first and their picture will come up so that the person at the attraction can verify that's who it is, and that somebody else isn't using their pass. And then they'll approve it and let you in. But on that video call, you get to book 2 attractions for each day you have a park reservation at whichever park you have the reservation at. And then the day of, you can continue booking one at a time.
Once those times have expired.
And it'll give you a return time to go back to the attraction.
Okay.
And not have to stand in the queue. Usually the return time is whatever the wait time is. So like if the wait time at that ride is currently 60 minutes and you get on there at 3 o'clock, it'll tell you, hey, come back at 4.
Okay.
Yep. So you're still waiting as long as everybody else, but you're not standing in that line.
Right, right. Well, and they probably know the return on it is good too, because you're going to go get you know, a churro or something else, and you know, come back to the ride and be ready.
For us in particular, we would get like a return time for one that had like an outside queue, and then we'd go stand in line for like Space Mountain where the queue is entirely indoors or something like that. Like and then we'd come back and get on the other one afterwards.
Which is smart use of the. I feel like Disney parks teach time management better than like anything else, because you're like, okay, if we stand in this line for this long and we want to go to, it is really a neat way to do that.
Well, so, and Genie's kind of neat. So Genie Plus is the $15 a day thing, but Disney Genie is just a service that everybody automatically gets, and you kind of take like a little short, I don't want to say like test, but like a little quiz about what you want to do in a day. So like it'll ask you what's important to you. Do you want to see this ride? Do you want to do these shows? Do you want to eat here? Do you want to see the fireworks? And it'll ask you those questions. And then it'll actually give you an itinerary for the day based on wait times, based on show schedules, things like that. Of like, hey, go do this first and then do this and then that. And it kind of works you around the park.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have that when we went. So there's some new things that.
It just launched last fall, I think.
Well, we're talking maybe a Disney Hawaii trip, so we'll see. Like, and then the talk about going to there's Disney France.
Yep. So you have Disneyland Paris. You've got Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Shanghai, and then you've got Orlando, California, and then you have the Aulani Resort in Hawaii. There's 2 resorts. There's Hilton Head, North Carolina, and there's Vero Beach in Florida, which. Aulani, Hilton Head, and Vero Beach are all 3 Disney resorts that are independent of the parks. There's no theme park.
Sure, it's just the resort
adjacent to them. It's just the resort.
Okay.
And then you have the Disney Cruise line, obviously, which I think currently has 4 ships, and the Disney Wonder will be the 5th, and that launches this summer, I believe. And then you have Adventures by Disney, which is kind of like all expense paid guided vacations. So like they'll do like Machu Picchu, they'll go to like things like that, and it's Disney manages it, and it's like traveling with a professional Disney traveler. I don't know. It's interesting. They're really interesting. Cool.
Well, I'm going to wrap us up. We went a little over 30 minutes, but there was so much stuff. So what I invite you guys to do also is at this video, comment on stuff that maybe we didn't touch on that you want to know about going into the next time. And we'll make sure to have the answers going in to talk about some Disney hacks. Maybe we'll cover that like summertime as we head into the fall when it's some of those fun things that are coming up because the lights and stuff like that they do are always a really good time. Yeah. So thank you, Floyd. Thanks for sitting down with me. We'll make sure that you have access to some of this, and we'll catch you the next time with 30 Minutes with a Realtor. Yep. Thanks so much.
I can also float around in the comments too for a minute.
Absolutely.